welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Ritchie of the MHRT Network. Over that away, you'll catch Jack Kenna representing your Las Vegas Raiders. And down below here, we've got DZ representing the Chargers. Alex will be back with us shortly, just working on a few things in terms of work commitments, sadly, that are conflicting with the pod, but he will be back to represent the Kansas City Chiefs here on the four-man panel that is the Wild Wild West podcast. Obviously, guys, there is but one thing to discuss, and that is the NFL draft. Obviously, this is the time where we hope that our teams make the right moves in order to progress them in a forward direction. Because if you're not getting better, then you're getting worse, as the old adage goes.
True.
And in addition to that, we have a bit of a divide. And just to kind of let everyone know in terms of what we're going to be talking about on today's show, we are going to be saving the UDFAs, which I actually believe are in such a unique class just because they have a much tougher road to get onto each of our individual teams than, say, our draft class typically would. And the AFC West has a pretty storied history, with the exception of the Chargers, of having a robust UDFA class that typically makes their rosters most years. The Broncos have one of the longest streaks of any NFL team of having a UDFA making the roster. Then we broke it for 1 year and then have continued the streak every year since. So it is a really unique AFC West tradition in terms of the fact that at least one or two solid UDFAs end up making it into our division. And also just a quirk, actually, my Denver Broncos of just having so many successful UDFAs enter in the league. I mean, one guy you may recognize from that list would be CJ Anderson. Who's a UDFA. And I mean, he's arguably probably one of the best running backs that the Broncos have had on our roster in recent memory, aside from TD, obviously. But, CJ Anderson is, the guy. He was certainly the guy that did most of the dirty work for us in terms of the run game, all the way through the success that we had there with the Broncos when Peyton Manning was here, right? So I just think that is an interesting observation there, just of my Denver Broncos and the rest of the division. Obviously, guys, let's jump right into it. We'll just go into each of your general thoughts, and then we'll go right into kind of player by player, round by round analysis and stuff, and go from there. DZ, start with you. Just general thoughts on the draft for you guys.
Looking back at it and looking at all the guys they got, I thought it was a solid draft. I can see a lot of these guys being contributors year one, like season one, week one. I can see them all playing a part. I felt like the board fell to us kind of weird in the first round, hence that selection they made at 22. But overall, pretty stoked on it. Digging into a lot of these prospects. I see the path for a lot of these guys, especially picks 1 through 5 are guys that I see as major contributors if things work out well. And yeah, man, we shall see. But overall, yeah, I thought it was really good. They got two guys that were my guys, round 2 and 4. So I was pretty stoked on that.
Jack, what about you?
I got to say that they hit it out of the park this year. It was a really exciting draft. This is the most they've had. They turned it into 11 draft. Start off 9, turned it into 11. Most draft picks since 2007. So it made watching the entire draft an exciting process because they're always around the corner to get another pick. And I cannot argue with anything that they pretty much did. It's a total Pete Carroll style draft. And I see the potential, possibly up to 4 guys starting in year one. So I'm looking for digging into these guys. Some of them I didn't understand at the time because I didn't know. and I didn't draft them in mock drafts. So I'm like, okay, who are these guys? What do they do? What do they bring? And then that, afterwards, you do your research, and it's okay. I can see how these pieces are fitting in the puzzle. And I love the fact that, I'm an inside out guy, and they got two offensive big men, 2 defensive big men, and they put a lot of pieces around that. And it was definitely geared towards the offense this year.
The back-to-back QB selections late, that kind of threw me for a loop.
It did. That was one of the things. I'm like, I didn't understand that until reading what they're going to do with, one of the quarterbacks they drafted. Then it's like, okay, now I kind of see where you're going. And when we start talking about the players individually, I'll go in more detail about that. And then after we do our oversights, do you guys just want to go like first round, keep going, circle each of us in order? And then
I'd like us to kind of go maybe round by round, and we'll go round by round and discuss each of our draft picks.
I like that.
And kind of
Sounds
our thoughts.
good, man.
And I think the audience here would appreciate that as well. There's obviously gonna be some guys and players that, our audience maybe is less familiar with, but that's where we kind of step in, fill in the gaps. And then it also gives, I think, everyone time to, go in and search Dr. Google there and kind of give them all the draft analysis as we're going to kind of give them the updates. And this is actually one of the benefits of having an AFC roundtable show like this, right? We play each other, more than any other teams ever. So there's just one of those things where it's an important thing to kind of get the information on your opponent and what to expect, because this is the bread and butter. Like, if you don't win the division, you're not going to the playoffs, like guaranteed. And then it's up to your team to then win enough other games to make it to the playoffs, right? And so, the first step in every journey for each of our teams is to win the division. And so knowing what your divisional opponents were able to acquire, hoping that they maybe made a mistake, or 5 or 7.
Those pesky Chiefs have had this division way too long, man.
Yeah, we need to kick them to the curb. And it's also fun too, just seeing what's up, Gord, Ed. I think it's also fun too. The guys that we're going to be talking about today are the guys that we're going to be on the field and be like, oh yeah, we talked about him. Now I know a little something about the guy on the other squad, where before he was just a name on the back of a jersey.
Bingo. Yeah.
So I guess we may as well start in draft order.
Which
means
Mr.
Jack,
Kenna.
Mr. Kenna.
All right. So in the 2025 draft, Raiders on the clock, pick number 6. Fell right in the lap. It's kind of what all the media was saying that was going to happen, and what there was other guys, Raider Nation wanted different players, of course.
Pat myself on the back for this. I've been calling this forever.
Well, I think a lot of people have. And when we did our mock draft, this is the player that fell, and it was a no-brainer. Run that up to the board. We get Aston Genty, the best running back, coming out of college.
Real quick, though, even though there was a trade, the way that the boards fell, it really didn't. The general order in that kind of early part of the first round didn't really change all that much.
Not at all.
The only thing that changed was which teams took which players.
Yeah.
And it didn't start getting weird. And sorry, Jai, I'll let you go right into your pick there. It only started getting a little weird once you got past pick 10.
Yep.
Right. And then it kind of got head scratching, where you're just like, what? That guy wasn't supposed to go to the 20s, and that guy wasn't supposed to go to here, and that guy wasn't so it got really odd as the draft kind of progressed a little bit. But certainly in that top block there, Jack, per our mock draft, generally speaking,
it fell in order.
It fell in order for your picks for sure, where you had the pick of the litter just like you did in our mock draft. It was just a matter of who went where.
The guy that went after you guys, Jack, is the one I thought would be your guys' second choice. I'm
sorry, can you say that again? A motorcycle drove by. I couldn't hear you use that.
After your guys' pick was Membo, And that I thought
Yeah.
that would have been, it's either or, it's Genty or Membo. And I think they, either flipped a coin or they really wanted Genty, that generational back.
I was right there. Again, the three guys that, I wanted was either Mason Graham, Genty, or Membo. And again, the way the draft lined up, everyone kind of fell in that spot except for, the Jaguars trade a slew of picks to swap with Cleveland.
Oh yeah.
Which I'm like, wow, for a non-quarterback, that's a lot of capital. But again, it did still fall in that direction. But I was sitting on pins and needles, going, is it going to be like what you just said, DZ? Is it going to be Membo or is it going to be Genty? You could go either direction because again, it's a deep running back class, so you can get one of the top tackles, first, and then come back on the backside, and then get your running back in round 2. But I can't say, Genty is like a top, one of the top 3 athletes coming out of this entire draft. I mean, he has more yards after contact than most guys have yards.
Yeah.
And he fits what a Pete Carroll scheme looks like. And again, it's like you brought this up, and I've read this in several articles. His comp is LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yep, they said that a few weeks ago.
And I know playing against your Chargers, I did not like facing LaDainian Tomlinson at all. So to have a short guy like 5'8.5", 5'9", weighing on 210 pounds, he's a little bowling ball. He's going to get lost behind the big offensive line. Again, he's tough to bring down. He's got good vision. He's got good power. And, he came out of college almost breaking Barry Sanders' record.
Wow.
So getting, a top 3 person out of this draft at number 6 for, just being an athlete and a football player, I was excited. Raider Nation was excited. And I just cannot wait to see what he does. And even like Marshawn Lynch reached out to him. So, I mean, it's fabulous. I was smiling ear to ear, being able to see that this kid is going to come to this organization. And he even flew in like the Raiders brought him in the next day, and he, meeting up with Max and the owners. And so a potential, he's definitely a day 1 starter. That's for sure. And I think as we go through this, we should also call out if our picks, if we think they will make it, not make it, or a tweener. And this guy is a definitely day 1 starter because that Raiders running back room was so horrible last year. And the last in the league in rushing, and that is just going to change a lot of dynamics going against your Broncos, Richie, and DZ, your Chargers, and Alex's KC Chiefs. So I just cannot wait to see what he does. And he's not just a runner, he's also a pass catcher.
He's a weapon.
So you can get him out of the backfield. It's going to be, and then you start pairing them. And as we go through the draft, it's a heavily offensive-oriented draft. It's going to be a whole different ball of wax. The team only got, averaging like 19 points a game. I mean, what this kid's going to do is it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And again, we talked about if you have a bad offensive line, you're not going to get to production like Saquon Barkley. But I will talk more about that later in the draft.
Even Saquon still produced behind a pretty piss poor line in New York, and it just shows how he flourished in that that new Philadelphia offensive line.
Oh yeah, when you got that type of line, you can see what he can do. He'll get you that instead of that 1,100 yards, he'll get you 2,000 yards. Hey, what's up, Cool Kev? But yeah, excited. It just purely excited. I love Josh Jacobs. I called him the 3rd best running back in Raider history. I think this kid has the potential to surpass Josh Jacobs and go against the 2 greats in Raider Nation history.
I can definitely see it, man, especially with Pete Carroll at the helm. I can definitely see it.
Yeah, Pete Carroll's a kind of a bit of an old school guy, which is actually what's currently winning in the NFL today, which is that old school trench style play. The interestingly enough, the Rams style offense, which was basically all offense and no defense, or the old KC way of doing things, which was all offense and no defense, isn't working as well as it once did, just because the defenses they've caught up. And so now it's up to the offensive side of the league to level up again. And it hasn't happened just yet where the offenses are kind of like dominating the defenses. But it'll be very interesting to see kind of where that takes us.
And we're starting to see it turn a little bit again. Everybody went away from the running backs to a
somehow they got
pass-happy league.
devalued so quick, and it didn't make any sense. It was like a blink, man.
Well, you got to be able to run the ball, and you got that 3rd and 3, that 4th and 2. You got to have that threat or someone that can push the ball to get you that first down and move those chains. And you just can't do it just one. Because what all our defense? What do we all keep saying? Make the team one-dimensional, right? Make the team just pass. Well, when you got good running backs out there, and again, it's like a resurgence. The running backs coming back. That it makes a huge difference. You got to have a balanced squad. Yes, running backs don't last as long as like a wide receiver, but at the same time, you're paying that wide receiver a whole lot more money than you are paying a running back.
Yeah, man.
So A+ on that draft pick there.
100%.
I give it an A+ as well.
We'll quickly. Yeah, I think that is an immediate upgrade for your team, and it was in an area of your team that, from a value perspective in the draft, you desperately needed.
Desperately.
And you got a generational talent at that position. And as much as it pains me to say it, that's going to be a challenge for each of the teams in our division on a go-forward basis, which is just a fact, right? Like I think he's got the potential of being, one of those real problems for each of our teams. Very similar, and especially with Pete Carroll, right? Because Pete Carroll is a sharp guy, and he likes running the ball.
He does.
What happened? They kept him.
Yeah.
Did you pay this guy, Jack?
Nope.
No. So moving on to the Broncos pick there at 20.
Pick 20.
We a few surprises actually. Kenneth Grant was, in my opinion, the Broncos probably circled player, I believe. But he went at pick 13 to the Dolphins, which nobody expected. In fact,
that surprised the hell out of me, man.
In fact, I believe that everyone expected the Dolphins to take Jahdae Barron, and then the Broncos to likely get Kenneth Grant. So I actually think the Dolphins and Broncos were kind of slated to, almost pick swap, right? And I think this is exactly what we talked about in our mock draft show, guys, which was there is a shift in the NFL to look at what the Eagles and in some regards the Kansas City Chiefs have done in building the offensive and defensive lines. And the Eagles in particular have just basically stacked their defensive line with so much talent in the early rounds of the draft that they are going to be a problem for a very long time.
I mean, Alabama and Georgia might as well just be the Eagles farm team, because that's all that A and G in Eagles really means something, because that's where their whole defense comes from.
Right. But again, to your point though, it's not like they're picking from slouches of schools.
No.
Like these are schools that are always in the discussion. You know what I mean? Like
SEC,
they're always,
baby.
Always the top competition.
Yeah. And so I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. So anyways, with that in mind, what the Broncos ended up doing is, as a result of the way the draft board, in my opinion, kind of worked itself out, the Broncos ended up grabbing, and this is actually more of a a surprise pick because in some regards it's a luxury for the Broncos.
Yep.
Because Jaquan McMillan, he was a good player for us last year.
Like, you have some dudes on that secondary already.
Like
they just,
I would argue that McMillan would start on a good percentage of the NFL teams out there, like as in like for sure day one starter. Whereas the Broncos looked at it and said, the dude's there. We had a top 10 grade on him, and he's fallen to us at 20. It is an undeniably good pick for us to take. Now, it is no secret I am a trenches first. Like that is the way that I believe a football team needs to be built.
Right.
I believe I have a preponderance of evidence. If we're going to steal from the legal lingo that I'm familiar with and other members of our show are familiar with as well, there's a preponderance of evidence that is actually the correct way to build your football team, because over the last almost 10 years, we have seen teams that are built in that way win. So I think it's an important thing to kind of point out. But at some point, the draft, character combined with play on the field, combined with positional value, you just can't deny that pick being taken. The one thing I am surprised that the Broncos did not do is in the latter stages of the first round or early second round, look to try to trade Jaquan or McMillan rather.
Can you move him over to slot? I mean like
injuries happen.
No, but that's the thing. Riley Moss, in my opinion, I don't believe is going to be moving away from the boundary corner opposite of Pat Surtain. I think Jahdae Barron is going to replace McMillan. So I think you're going to end up with Moss, Surtain, and then Jahdae Barron as your new starting kind of trio of cornerbacks. And
that's a no-fly zone.
That's a legit combination of corners. Like everyone keeps on kind of like crapping all over Riley Moss, but what they forget is he got hurt in a fluke injury last year, and when he went down, there was, if you look at the stats for the Denver Broncos in terms of the passing game, there is a line that's kind of drawn in the sand, which was Riley Moss there, Riley Moss not there. Like forget the games that we just outright lost because Surtain wasn't on the field. Let's just push those aside. There is a huge difference in terms of defensive play when Riley Moss was on the field versus not. Now, I think that this definitely is a major boost to the Broncos secondary. Like that's undeniable.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
My only concern with this is that this is a very 90s move, which is cornerbacks and wide receivers were all the rage in the 90s. Whereas you look at what
early
the
2000s as well.
And early 2000s. But what you're seeing actually hold sustainable success in today's NFL is stout defensive lines and incredible offensive lines. Offensive lines basically can make average running backs look great.
Yep.
And they can protect really crappy quarterbacks to such an extent that they can actually look way better than they actually are. I think you need to look no further than Dak Prescott. The dude was behind an incredible offensive line in Dallas. And then as those offensive linemen started to fade away and then not be replaced with competent replacements in Dallas, because let's face it, Jerry Jones can't draft worth crap, is you saw Dak Prescott come back down to earth. And he went from being, the bee's knees there in Dallas to how fast can we get rid of the clown, right? And they can't, right? Because they paid him too much money and they can't offload him. So I think that makes it. I think when you look at the totality of what is required to win at the NFL level, it's clear that the offensive line play matters an incredible amount on the one side of the ball, and the defensive line success, both pressures, sacks, and quarterback hits as a combined overarching stat, and even hurries, like even quarterback hurries and stuff, they really matter. And we're seeing that time and time again in the NFL in terms of successes. So I think that.
And Richie, I gotta give you this. I mean, you look again. We talk about the Eagles having a great defensive line, but what did they do last year? They drafted 2 corners with their first 2 picks. So I mean, you get that pressure up front, you get quality in the back. You're going to end up with a lot of turnovers. So I can see what they're doing. It's just, again, with the kid that, even the safety you got from the Niners, I mean.
They made a strength even stronger, man. Like, they just made it, like, go nuclear, it seems. I think something about that Barron pick had to do with Will Johnson sliding, the cornerback out of Michigan, due to medicals on his knee. I think the Broncos were like, we are going to get the best cornerback here. Like, they're going to get the best bang for their buck at pick 20. So they got the best cornerback. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of similar to how I feel about my pick at 22. But it was a no-brainer. If you look at the board, it makes sense. It's kind of like a Raven, Eagles kind of pick where they just they already have that position set for years or set for the next season, but they're like, screw it. We're taking the best guy, best player available, and they're doing it. They're not reaching for anybody. And I think
just
that
to
was
interject there, just because 22 is a relevant pick. 20 is also a relevant pick, but 22 is a really relevant pick. When you're down at 22, you've already selected at that point the majority of the first round.
Yeah.
Right? And we had a question on our draft show. Do we remember what it was?
Hints?
So the big question was, are teams going to draft the other positions because there's fewer of them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then let the deep positions kind of push deeper into the draft?
Yeah.
Or are teams going to look at it and say, this draft is too good at those positions, interior defensive line and running back. And also there's a dusting and smattering of a few other players that kind of fit the bill too. But what we saw was NFL teams, and let's be honest here, guys, this is going to be the new way forward for the foreseeable future, right? So I think it's time that we stop listening to some of these draft gurus that are.
There's too many, man. Rich, there's too many effing of these guys.
Yeah.
For months, just seeding the fan bases of all these teams and just brainwashing the hell out of them.
Absolutely.
But let's look at what happened, though. Like the point is, let's look at what happened. Well, Kuiper's a different animal. Let's just
Kuiper's a moron.
Let's just put the quaff aside, right? But bottle job quaff at that. But anyways, the point is that when you look at what the teams actually did and how they navigated this draft, NFL teams put all of these draft analysts and fans, or fanalists for that matter as well,
which we are,
of course.
Yeah.
But they put all of us on blast, and they said, look, here's the deal. If you haven't picked up on it already, we don't care about flash or, this, that, and the third. We are looking at what is currently working in today's NFL, and that is going to actually be the, elevation factor or the hook factor. So like when you see a guy gets picked up, and elevated by someone that they're friends with or whatever, I call that the hook factor, right? So what's the hook factor or the elevation factor for these players? Well, in this year's draft, it was the fact that these defensive linemen, especially like that cluster of them that all got taken in the first round, they were exceptional in this draft. And NFL teams said, we saw what the Eagles did and it worked. We've seen what the Chiefs have done and it has worked, because the Chiefs and Eagles are both doing trench play, right?
Yeah.
And so
before it was cool, right?
Before it was the thing to do, right? Yeah. They set the tone. And now all of these other NFL teams are saying, all right, we see what's working. And they're following
It's a copycat
suit.
league. I mean, the NFL is just one giant copycat league.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And when you get that type of run too, then other good players at different positions are going to get pushed down.
And that's what happened with Jahdae Barron, right? By all accounts, in most other drafts, he would have been a top 10 pick. Why wasn't he? Well, Kenneth Grant, for example, was taken at pick 13. Why?
Surprising.
Why?
Trench play.
That's trench play. Like the
Eagles.
Eagles. Like Eagles,
Yeah.
Eagles. Like that's the point.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I'm not trying to take away from the Chargers pick, but it's one of those things where I would argue the Chargers followed suit as well, which is when you look at what's winning games, you have trench play, you have first off, we'll call it defensive line play, offensive line play, and then in addition to that, the running game is making a resurgence in the NFL in terms of what matters and what is valued the most.
Yeah,
man. So I would argue that Harbaugh is simply looking at the, what have you done for me lately league, and is simply saying, I agree.
Yeah.
And you guys got Alt last year, which basically took care of the two most critical positions to kind of lock down the outer edges of your team and the offensive line. Yeah. And so I of course you took Hampton. Why wouldn't you?
So I guess that's the Chargers. Talk about the Chargers pick at pick 22. And to be honest, for me and a lot of fans, it was a surprise picking a running back at pick 22. But it shouldn't be a surprise because we need to pay the attention to what Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz tell us. And if you look at the stats, the running game didn't work for the Chargers in 2023 or 2024. It was there were spurts where J.K. Dobbins would have it was flashes.
Yeah.
So Greg Roman, who is not a fan favorite, but we got to pull back the reins on this. His system never really came into play last year. They could really never get their run first centric play action, to work throughout the majority of the season, and it showed against really good teams. It was the offense was just putrid, pathetic against these really good teams, really good defenses, and it all fell on Justin Herbert's shoulders, like the previous 4 or 5 seasons he's been in this league. And one of the things they said at the closing pressers last year was we did a disservice to Justin Herbert, and I 100% believe that. And at the 22nd pick, they picked Omarion Hampton, who is the only guy that people had in the same breath with Genty or near that Genty kind of, comp. It was Genty, Hampton up here, and everybody else down below. We'll see how this plays off. We'll see how that plays off because Daniel Jeremiah, a guy I kind of look into as kind of these draft analyst guys, he actually does his homework, and he had his final mock. He had the Chargers picking Trayvon Henderson out of Ohio State, that shocked the fan base. We're like, whoa, what? And he was on something because, they get Omarion Hampton, and the way the draft fell to the Chargers at 22nd, all these D tackles were gone, and that's who we kind of thought were going to get picked up. And so they went with a best player available value pick. It could have been him or Golden. And in my eyes, they saw a guy that could be a 3-down, 4-down guy. That has way more value than Matthew Golden, in my opinion.
Can I just interject really quick on that?
Yeah.
That is so for everyone in Broncos country, thank you for joining the show. I appreciate you joining us live. Those Broncos fans that are here live, I want to hear your let's go Broncos in the chat, please. I'd like to know who's here, who's not.
All right, let's get a Raiders.
I'm sorry, the power cut out. You live in Los Angeles under Gavin Newsom, so that's unfortunate. But the point here is, your point there of being an every down back. Okay, that I just want you to keep in mind and keep locked in there. That I think is incredibly important. Now, why do I think that's so important? So as an example, what that does for your team is it allows you to bring your running back onto the field and not be a tell. So for the opposing defenses, they're not looking at Hampton being on the field and being like, oh, they're running the ball.
Yeah.
Right? And then on the flip side, like if you bring on a pass catching style tight end or like a tight end who's basically only a pass catcher and not a blocker, you're not having to then change up your running back to make sure that you're, in the right mode, right? You just simply leave Hampton on the field and be like, just do you.
Yeah,
right?
he's a total 3-down back.
Yeah. So anyway,
he can pass catch
think
as
that's
well.
important. No, I'm not even discounting that, but my point is that he has the ability to be that every down back and be that Swiss Army knife in the running back position as well. And so the point is that unlike a lot of other backs that come out of the draft, one of the reasons why he and Genty, obviously the two other guys here, like you guys both drafted like the 3-down Swiss Army knife backs in this draft, like the guaranteed, just put them on the field, and unless they tap out, they stay on, basically is the thing, right? And so I think that's a big deal. I think that's a huge deal for you guys because it allows you to play a certain style of offense, which does not tip your hand to your opponent. And as your opponent, I hate it.
I mean, we'll see. This is a guy. I mean, I get that. Yeah, and that I would love to see this happen. This is a 6 foot, 220-pound guy who ran the 4.46.
He's big. He's fast. I mean, and that offensive line is being built up. I mean, it's going to be it is pure powerball. But I thought it was kind of interesting when we did in my thought what you guys were going to do. I thought Richie's team was going to get Hampton, and I thought you were going to get Grant. So it's kind of weird how it kind of everything kind of flip flop and changed out a little bit.
That's exactly why. And they had that trade. There was some trade working on, I think, with the Eagles and Giants. There was a lot of. I mean, that pick went down to the last second. But I think in the long run,
the Broncos actually had a trade with the Broncos had a trade in place with the Giants to move down. And for whatever reason, we chose not to. I would love, as a Broncos fan, so I know what the Giants paid, air quotes, to move up to the 24th pick, back into the 24th pick in the first round.
Yeah.
As a Broncos fan, I would like to know, just because I think it's good to know where the mind spaces and head spaces of our front office, what draft capital did we turn down for the Giants to move up to our pick? I as a Chargers fan, I'm sure you would like to know too. So, for example, were you offered the same as what they offered for 24? And if so, are you okay with that?
I don't have the slightest clue, to be honest with you.
Well, that's when they came back in and got Jackson Dart. So, okay, well, I guess the question I would have, since you kind of followed this, and I didn't really try to study this for the show, what again did New York give up to move up to get Jackson Dart originally? So you know what that is, then it's going to be even better.
Just give me 1 sec.
Anyways, looking back at it, I see how this guy fits, and he's going to learn with Najee for a year, so it's going to be a little thunder and thunder. He was both years in a row. He was second team, all American. He was first team all ACC, and the second year, his last year in college, he didn't have Drake May. He was the whole offense, and he still put up like over 1,000 yards. This kid's built, man. He is a specimen. I am excited to see him. He is.
Hold on. Just real quick, Jack, the answer to your question is this. They gave up pick 34, which was the first pick in the second. They gave up pick 99 and a 2026 third round pick to move to pick 24. So that's two picks So just DZ, this is why I'm kind of bringing this up, right? Which is, so pick 34 is the second or third pick in the second or third pick in the second round, right? And then so that's kind of a big deal, right? And then you end up with pick 99, which is, you know, again, a top 100 pick. So like you're stacking top 100 picks at this point. And then a 2026 third.
Okay,
Now,
hindsight's 2020. So let's say if it was something similar. So for DZ, since you know we're talking Chargers, so that means you would have missed out on Henderson because Henderson went to Cleveland with the pick before. So then you would have been with like Junkins.
Yeah, there's other guys. Dylan Sampson, that's another guy I really liked. There's other running backs, but
or the kid from Iowa.
I think what this guy just did by them drafting Hampton, it's like it's a no-brainer that they'll say bye-bye to Najee, and Najee is essentially on his second contract year because, you know, his last year in Pittsburgh, he was playing for a new contract. Now he's on a one-year deal with the LA Chargers, and he's going to be playing for his next contract. So that's a little added incentive for his play this season. And we got Hampton to learn with this guy, which I'm thrilled about.
That's a hell of a 1-2 punch.
I do have some downsides about him. There is some down stuff about him. He's not an elusive guy. He's not a cut guy, bounce it to the outside guy. He doesn't have like long speed. He will get caught, you know, down the field. But I don't think that bothers Jim and whatever. But one thing I did notice is, because I wasn't familiar with North Carolina, is their offensive line played a zone blocking scheme, which he didn't have to be patient, right? So they, you know, set, hike the ball, boom, hit a gap. Well, the Chargers last year implemented a run gap scheme, which those running backs need to be slightly a little bit more patient before they make their, you know, their cuts or pick their holes, which they go, because you have pulling guards. Some of these blocks take a little bit to get going. So that's going to be a learning curve for him coming into this system, but I don't see it being a huge deal. We'll see, though.
I gotta say, all I like all the picks so far. I know it's the first round, so of course we're gonna like them all. But I think, you know, Hampton, he could be a very special player. I mean, he's big, he's strong. He may not be able to break it, but he's got some like Josh Jacobs written all over him. He's gonna make a guy miss, and he's gonna make, you know, break.
What they want to do is just. I think one of his comps is Ramondre Stevenson, which I can see that, especially when Ramondre was doing really good in New England. One thing I think is they just want they want the time of possession. They want to take over games at the time of possession. They want to run the clock out. They would just want to go with this, you know, kind of this old school, you know, time of possession game, run the ball, you know, if you want to stack the boxes, stack the boxes, you know. So we'll see. It's going to be fun, man. They're bringing back some old school mentality to the AFC West, and I'm here for it, man. You know, a lot of these young fans, you know, they want the fireworks and they want to throw all over the yard, and that's fun too, especially for fantasy purposes. But this is it's all about wins at the end of the day.
I agree. So we are going to move on to the second round.
Should we talk about Kansas City's picks, or do you want to leave that? Because I thought their pick, Josh Simmons, was an absolute steal. When we did the mock, that's who I took in the second round. It's someone who I really want him to get.
Jack, as much as I would love to talk about KC's picks annoyed the living hell out of me.
Yes, they annoyed the hell out of me too.
It was like they got guys. They're like, oh, I need this guy. Boom, got him.
Yeah.
I need that guy. Boom, got him.
It was basically like the draft fell to KC as like, hey, you lost the Super Bowl for like these specific reasons.
And then here are the guys to fill it in.
Here's the guys to fill in all the gaps. I hope that helps you. It's like, that was ridiculous.
And people are like, but Josh Simmons, because of it, I think it was an ACL or some knee issue. And I'm like, modern medicine is the thing, man. This guy is going to be just fine in Kansas City. Like, Dude, what a steal.
He had a torn patella is what he had. But man, I mean, I agree. The draft, every way you go, that guy was there. It's like someone was like guiding or blocking, like the angel on their shoulder saying, okay, you can't take this guy. You can't take this guy. He's going to drop right to KC.
Let's put it this way. When we did our 3-round mock, I had Royals as like a highlighted guy that I really liked.
Jalen, yeah.
And Casey got him. That guy immediately replaces Sky Moore and
fourth round, man. Pick 133.
Got him in the fourth. They got him in the fourth. That guy is like like literally my projection is that guy is going to start for them. So like this is like everything about the KC draft. Like Alex has got to be just like over the moon.
I will say though, with KC's draft, their third and fourth round guy, or no, there are 2 third rounds. I apologize. I didn't know they had 2 third. I know nothing about these guys, like at all. And I'm sure
I know Noah Williams, since I'm a Northern California guy. Noah Williams, he's a good cornerback.
Cal, yeah, he's a Cal guy. Okay. But the Ashton Gillette guy, the DN out of Louisville, I'm like, I have no clue. And that's
I don't know. But they got Omar Norman Lott too. I mean, I picked him up in several, mock drafts. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's like guys I was taking in mock drafts, and I also like their 5th round pick in Jeffrey Bassett, linebacker.
I think that Norman Lott guy's going to be. He's a projected pass rush D tackle, right? Anybody? Yeah.
Yes.
And the Jalen Royals guy, especially in that system, geez Louises.
I'm not a fan. I'm just not a fan because you got speed and you got a guy that has a big arm, and Kansas City prioritizes their trenches. They prioritize the offensive line and they prioritize the defensive line.
I hope he buys a Ferrari. Please buy a Ferrari.
Buy a Ferrari.
Just do something stupid, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kidding. Like a little recap of the KC picks, but either way, like my general consensus on KC is, if I'm going to be honest, much like our entire division, I actually think that our entire division drafted exceptionally well.
Yep.
I
mean,
I just think they exceptionally well.
Everybody kept parroting like, "Oh my God, the Raiders knocked it out of the park," and then people were like, "Did you not see the rest of the division?" And it's like they're like, "Oh my God, the Broncos," and everybody's like, "The rest of the division did." It was just this whole back and forth throughout on social media, and the AFC West is.
Right. And I picked up on that on draft night where I kind of went and I said to my fiance, I was like, the division all drafted well, and I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
And by the way, my fiance has the greatest name for draft night. It's called Pick Your Favorite Player Day.
Pick Your Favorite Player Day.
I love that name. I really do.
I mean, it's essentially what it is.
I know it is. It is such a great name for the draft. Jack, you have another Jack that's going to come into the show and bolster your Raiders 2nd round draft pick and give some additional insight.
Who's also a Jack?
Show. Well, as I said, it's Jack's, I suppose. We will go ahead.
I guess this is pure. Hey, what's up, Cap?
Good night and good evening, everybody.
We're going to go ahead and have both of you delve right into your 2nd round draft pick. So let's jump right in.
Before I go there, I can only stay on for about at most 15 to 20 minutes because I got to do another show at the top of the hour. But I want to say thanks for letting me on, gentlemen. I'm sure that you got a lot.
Real quick. Like let's just put it out there. Captain Jack was at the draft and made multiple TV appearances.
Oh.
So can we give a round of applause for the famous member of the panel?
I was like, I know that guy. I know that dirty pirate.
Hey, Cap, did you see the picture I sent you? You at the draft?
I've seen a lot of from everybody. And there are various shots of the same thing, and I love it because there's various exposures, and I haven't even posted them yet because I've had a real pain in the ass event trying to get back from the draft. And it took me an extra night. And today I'm just been vegging. So
my only issue with you, Captain, is I noticed the glasses. I only had one issue. Was I don't know how you saw anything because half of your one eye was completely covered with a pirate piece over your glasses. How are you even able to see?
It's see-through.
Oh, is it really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
cool.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
It's not totally see-through, but it's the very first eye patch that I had, and originally it was darkened in with with some like a fake sunglasses, like a cheapy, zippy top fake sunglasses. But I lost it, and then I found it again, and I also tried to put on like a strap, which was really a pain in my ass. So what I did was I found the glasses, which I think I've been on the show with, which was the Ricky, Ricky, what's his name, glasses, right? And I took them to my optometrist, and I put my real prescription in the cheap glasses with the pirate thing in there, and then I super glued the outside of what I've been keeping for years, which was a see-through device. Now, granted, I can't see all the way through it because there's something in front of it, but it is a see-through glass. So now I have my full prescription with that portion over. So now I don't have to wear my glasses with that strap. It just, I did it all at once.
Pretty
nice.
cool.
Awesome. So we don't have captain for very long. Let's make the best of this while we can to get the Raiders' second round draft pick. We already spoke about Ashton Genty. That is an organizational. That's just like a slam dunk. That's like a 3-point swish to win the game. Like that's an awesome pick for your organization. But let's talk about your second round pick.
No, I'm going to stop you there because I'm going to stop you there because when we made the pick for Ashton Genty, I was not happy. And the reason why I was not happy was because the guy I wanted, Armand Membo, was the guy that was taken next. Just like last year, I wanted the big offensive lineman, Fuaga, which was taken with the very next pick to the Raiders, right? But I wasn't as sour on Bowers as I was on Genty. And that's nothing to say bad about Ashton Genty. He is the premier running back in this draft. That's not an indictment on him. My indictment was you could draft Jim Brown at his highest level, but if you have nobody blocking for him, or if you have nobody blocking for Geno Smith, who ran for his life last year and did okay, I'm just saying that's a wasted pick. And I said the very first night when I said Genty, I was mad because Membo was the guy I wanted and he was taken next. And I said, I'm not bastardizing the Genty pick. I said, but if the Raiders do not take care of putting great offensive linemen in this draft in front of him, it's a wasted pick. Now, what I saw,
going round by round, Jet. We're going round by round. We're doing all first round, second rounds.
Well, but I'm playing some catch up. He's playing some catch up. So I actually agree with Jack's. I agree. I agree with your approach because you have a similar approach to, or look, we've done this enough times, Jack. Like Jack, you and I have been doing this for long enough together, even where you already know my feeling, which is an offensive line blocking for an average running back can make them look excellent, whereas an excellent running back behind an average offensive line can actually look subpar. And I think that's basically what your approach is there, or at least your mental mindset, which I agree. I completely agree with, like, 100%. That being said, I think that your team has enough cap space, both this year carried over into next, as well as next year, as well as your draft next year, if I'm going to be honest, where I think that you're going to be able to do what you want to do there and take what I believe is about a 9 or 10 win Raiders team this year, which you and I have. I've messaged both you and Jack that's where I'm pegging your team this year. Which I'm a Broncos fan. I hate the fact that I said that out loud, but nonetheless, I agree with it because I actually think that you have a high level of competency within your organization now, which I wish you didn't, because it makes our lives as the rest of the AFC West better if you don't. but I think you've done so well this offseason with coaching, draft picks, and also like just righting the ship, pun intended, now that we have Captain Jack on board here.
I like
and I really think I truly believe that the Raiders have literally started to steer in the correct course with the ownership group additions of Tom Brady, with Davis taking a step back and letting the football people kind of do football things, drafting well, bringing in Pete Carroll, bringing in Genty as a bell cow running back. These are all things that are scary as an AFC West opponent of the Raiders, because those are all things that we knew you needed to do, but we knew you would never do under former regime, but you've kind of completely changed course, and it's not good for us.
My 5 seconds, Jack,
Yeah.
let me rebuttal to Captain Jack real quick. You got Genty for 5 years. You got time to build around him, and Genties aren't growing on trees. So
No.
to me, it was a no-brainer. They had the chance to grab a generational running back, get him while you got him. Look, maybe he struggles this year against, some elite D line.
I'm gonna say D said you're wrong now too, because the reason why I said it, said I was mad at the pick. I said unless the Raiders figure out what to do with their offensive line. Okay. And again, I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying that we're going to have the wall of stone where you have 5 Hall of Famers in the offensive line like the Raiders did in the 70s. Look it up. They actually had 5, their entire line from left tackle to right tackle were Hall of Famers. Okay. But what they did is that they drafted Genty, and I'm going to skip around a bit only because and I love round 2. Love the cornerback pick. That was another pick that the Raiders needed because they needed to find somebody.
I want you to talk. I want you to start off on it, for round 2. But I do want to say this. I was more upset last year when we didn't get Fuaga and we took Brock Bowers. It took me a day to digest that because we drafted Michael Mayers, and I'm a Notre Dame guy. And we drafted him. We traded up in the second round to get him. So to get him, I'm like, we're just duplicating. And Fuaga is there, which he was the best right tackle out in the draft. So this year, seeing that, and then but Bowers is generational, and seeing that he's a potential generational. He's a top 3 person in this draft in reality. So getting him and knowing that we have so many picks that we can look at it later. So again, you just came on the show and you missed it. Again, we talked about briefly the Kansas City offense alignment, which the week before, I'm like, okay, that's from Ohio State. That's the kid I want in round 2. So I just had to like kind of battle back a little bit on that one. But yeah, talk about the third Jack in the room about Jack Besh.
Well, before we get there, because I only got a couple minutes, okay? Are we talking about the cornerback that we needed?
No, we're talking round 2.
Second round pick.
The wide receiver.
Second round pick.
Okay, generational. Okay, and I disagree again. I said last year I said okay, I'll take the hit because I knew how awesome Brock Bowers was. I knew that was they got the BPA best player period offensively. And in my mind, should have won, the rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year. Yep.
I think so. And yes, I am biased, but if you look at what he did, okay, the quarterback gets it because he touches the ball every second, but still, Brock Bowers was there. But Besh, and I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
Besh. I think it's Besh.
Okay. Besh was the best that we could get as far as a gentleman that can go up. He's tough. He's got a good story behind him. And all of these guys that they've been getting have been, dynamic in the fact that they're great character players. Okay. He was a great character player. He fought through a lot of different things. he has about all of, and I got to give love to Angelo for these because he does all my hard work for me. He tells me what I need to say because he actually does the reporting. He has the same physicality of a Fred Biletnikoff, who was drafted like 50 years ago. So I'm not saying that he is stickum, but he catches everything in sight. And by the way, Fred Biletnikoff didn't need stickum. It was just something that he did as a habit. And, he could catch everything in sight without the stickum. A la the same way that Lester Hayes did, and God get him into the Hall of Fame.
Those jerseys back then, you could totally see that shit all over the jerseys.
Right.
Yeah.
But Besh was the best in that. And we needed a running back. We needed a wide receiver one who basically was almost the same as what we had in Jacoby Myers. So I like that pick. And then when we got to now, when did we get the cornerback? Because I'll be honest, guys, when you're at the draft, you're caught up in the excitement. You say you're screaming for your pick, and then you just kind of like, okay, I had no. Oh, I got to remember not to cuss. I have really no friggin' clue what the Chargers did, what the Broncos did, what the Chiefs did, because I'm caught up in the moment. I'm caught up in the me moment. And I know that the Chiefs scouts were pissed that I said I wanted to get Membo, and they're like, no, we want Membo. He's from Missouri. And I'm like, you guys better trade up into the top 10. And then you got him right there because they wanted Membo as well, being that they were KC gals. So they knew how good he was. I said, well, you guys got to trade up to get him. But Besh, once you find out about him, and again, I'm not a draftnik, but again, you see the information that comes out afterward. Great pick as a wide receiver that we need. But I'm actually higher on the wide receiver we got out of Tennessee. Because I'm biased because I'm an SEC guy and I see that guy destroy people.
So Jack Besh. Here's the thing: he started off as a tight end. He's like what? He's like 6'2", so he's tall. Not a giant, but he's like 214 pounds. He is a type of player. Again, coming from a tight end position, he's a willing blocker. And again, this just ties in because there was other wide receivers that I had higher, than him. So that was kind of a surprise pick for me when there was other guys that were flashier than what he is.
Yeah,
he's a big body wide receiver. So the big body wide receiver, he's a willing blocker. So he's been kind of like brought up more in a slot, which again, I'm like, kind of why we got Trey Tucker. Like, why do we need a slot? But you can play him on the outside. And if you look at it, he dropped one ball all last year. So, yes, Cap, that was right on the money.
Myers has a 0%
Jacoby Myers. He's like he's very similar. Similar height. He's a bigger body receiver.
Way to help out your quarterback, man.
He's not going to blow you away with the speed or anything like that. He's got good enough route running. And if you can get the ball to him, which, Gino was one of the most accurate passers, and you got two Jacoby Myers, I'm loving that pick. I definitely see him as, again, we talk, guys, we're going to say if we want our guy, you think they're going to be a starter? Yeah, I think he's going to be a starter. And I just wonder how much Tucker's going to have to kind of switch it up a little bit. But when you look at, then you got Bowers, you got Michael Mayers, then you got Jack Besh, and then you got Myers. All those guys are willing blockers out there. So it's kind of fitting the flow of what, this team wants to do with their first pick in the way of Genty, and they want to, run the damn rock.
I agree. And that is Pete Carroll's MO. Pete Carroll's MO is run and open and basically force the other team to try to crowd the box to then allow you to throw the ball. And ultimately what you end up doing with that play style, now it works better in Denver just because of the thin air. It's just like a natural advantage that actually exists in Mile High at the altitude. But it exists everywhere, is wearing down the opposing defense through running the football is definitely a winning strategy if you can do it. We saw the Eagles do it almost the entire year last year with just enormous individuals on their offensive line, moving guys out of the way and allowing Saquon Barkley to be almost historic in the amount of runs and rushing yards that he had in the NFL last year, right?
Welcome to LA, Mekhi Becton.
Right. And so now you have the Raiders that are on track now through several different draft picks, which we will get to a little bit later as well as your first round draft pick, who is likely slated to be your Marshawn Lynch on the offensive side of the ball. Like, these are all chess moves by your team, which is like, guys like Genty don't grow on trees. We need to build the offensive line, and I think the Raiders fully understand that, because this is a different NFL than when Pete Carroll played in it. And I think he is, like, let's put it this way. Pete Carroll is a lot of things, but stupid is not one of them, right? Like he is a lot of different things. He is a little boisterous, maybe a little immature given his age, which is kind of funny because he's like,
got a lot of spunk for his age, man.
But the dude's got a lot of energy for his.
He's in better shape than anybody on this board right now.
No, he's not.
I tell you, he's in better shape than than all four of us. If you take all of our positive traits, he's in better shape than all.
Yes,
he's probably better shape than me. Yes, definitely.
No, I guarantee you, Carroll's not in better shape than I am. But like the point is that Pete Carroll is
Rich. I bet any money that Pete Carroll can outrun you.
I look forward to the
I'm putting,
and I will win.
You know what? I want to put some money on that too, Richie. I got you.
I will win. I promise you.
And Liz Captain's going to get like a souped up like scooter that can go like 40 miles an hour or something.
No, like I will take that bet any day of the week, and I guarantee you I will win. That's a done deal.
Okay.
But so anyways, the point is though, is that when you look at what your team has done, you finally have a vision, and different pieces are coming into the vision perhaps ahead of others. And I think that's the Genty versus Membo comment that you just kind of made there earlier when you kind of came on there, which in terms of people there, you're not going to get too much resistance from me in your approach, because that's my approach as well, right? Like I completely agree with you there. But in today's NFL, that like elite running back is always going to go in like the top 6 to 10. And the thing with this with this year's draft is the other linemen outshone the offensive linemen. Like, and I mean D linemen, I mean cornerbacks, I mean running backs. Like, they are so like all world in this year's draft that we just had, that people were saying that there's like 35 running backs in this year's draft that would have likely been a first round running back in most other years' drafts, like 30 or 35. It was some like unreal number. And it is incredible to have that kind of depth at certain positions in a one-year draft. And I think the Raiders got a guy not only that was an elite level talent, but he was the best of the best in this year's draft. And I think that is something to be said for your team, given the fact that you've seen your head coach do some pretty incredible things with a guy who certainly ran similarly to the running back that you just picked up with Marshawn Lynch. And Marshawn Lynch, by the way, was also a very highly touted draft pick as well. It's not like he was a slouch either coming in to the NFL, right? Like, so I think that's another important thing to note as well. Now, I agree with you. An offensive line being able to block can make an average running back look great. And I think that that's a completely different draft approach. But I also think that Pete Carroll wants to showcased the fact that he hasn't lost a touch. And I think that he has a job to keep. And I think that that's part of the reason why you ended up getting Genty, which is I think there would have been a bit of a revolt if he didn't get the running back that is seen by, I don't know, like 99% of all of the coaches and analysts as being a generational talent.
And Richie, we'll talk more about that when we get to round 3.
Yeah, I agree. So
I got to go. Let me quickly just get on to the offensive lineman, only because I got to go. What my envisionment was that the Raiders needed to get the offensive lineman, and this is just quick because I'm just saying they got quality, big, bruising boys, the triple Bs, with the 2 gentlemen that they drafted, and their names escape me. I mean, apologies, I Jack will, but they got a premier guard tackle that will project to be a guard, and then a premier tackle who will be a tackle, if not maybe the left tackle of the future, or slide in and be that guy. And that just bodes well, because within the last 2 drafts, we've got the center that we have now, the right tackle that we have now, which will stay in those positions, a guard and a tackle, which can slide in and be on that line. And it might spell the end of these other guys that are on the team now that might not be there. So, what's the future of Mumford? What's the future of Parham, our offensive lineman? Cap is on a 1-year lease. So, we'll see where he goes. But the Raiders offensive line-wise have gotten a lot better, and they need to, in order to keep Geno upright and block and do the blocking, the big boys up front for the runs that we're going to have. Just like Richie was saying, run the friggin' ball down their throats. And then when they come in, suck up to get the run, that's when you go over the top. And that's why quickly, I like Besh, but I like Thornton because I've seen what he can do as a speedster. And I know we're going out of order here, but I got to get out.
Round pick,
Thornton. Yeah, I believe 5th. He's the speedster out of Tennessee, runs a 4.33 at 6'5". Jack was talking about Tucker. Tucker's probably going to be relegated to a special teams guy or slot extra, because you got a guy who's built like a truck, kind of like a DK Metcalf, a guy that big, that strong, and that fast that can catch the ball, and that's going to be the guy. And with that, gentlemen, and I appreciate you letting me come on. I know you guys got this. I'm very happy with our pick, and I'm glad that the Raiders did pick the offensive lineman, which I alluded to, that they picked the cornerback. We didn't even talk about him because they needed a corner. They needed wide receivers. They got 2 of them. And, for all you people that are poo-pooing, well, the Raiders needed a quarterback. I like what we got at quarterback, and I even like the undrafted free agent out of UNLV. So if you're talking about the future, I'm good to go there. But I'm sure that Jack has the floor on that. Richie, thank you for letting me in. DZ, always good seeing you, brother. Jack Kenna,
good to see you, my brother.
Sir?
I said, good to see you, my brother.
You got it. Hey, you guys take care. I'm sorry I got to slide out before I'm late.
So we just briefly spoke there about Jack Besh. Obviously, he is your 2nd round at the 58th pick, wide receiver, a willing blocker at the tight end position.
Well, he's a wide receiver, tight end converted to wide receiver, kind of slot, bigger wide receiver.
Well,
again, willing blocker and great hands.
At 6'2", I would say he is not necessarily a massive wide receiver. Like if he was that 6'4", 2 whatever, then sure, I would agree with you there. But 6'2", I think it was an inevitable change that he had to go to wide receiver from tight end because he just wasn't.
Yeah, he's not big enough.
He's not big enough.
He wasn't big enough at 214 pounds. He definitely wasn't big enough. So he had to slide out.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, ultimately, that was a pretty good pickup for you guys. He was a guy that I actually had brought up, if I'm not mistaken, as a fringe guy for the Broncos at some point. But he was always someone that was looking and slated to be taken within the first 2 rounds of the draft, and you guys got him, so good for you.
And we got him on a trade back. So the Raiders traded back not once, but twice. So they had pick number 37, went all the way back to, and they got him at pick 58. So value pick too.
Right. So with that in mind, I think that's a good segue, Jack. Speaking of trade backs, the Broncos did the thing. We traded not once, but twice back in the second round of this NFL draft. Just for those of you who may have missed it and were not familiar, the Broncos acquired picks 57, 74, and 111 and 230 from the Panthers. And then we gave up 51, 85, 122, and 208. So we basically took all of our picks and flipped them to better picks in the later rounds for 3 consecutive picks, which is a pretty solid trade when you're looking to trade back in the second round. So I'm certainly not upset by that as a trade back. And then we did again when we went back, we got pick 60 and 130 from the Lions in exchange for pick 57 and 230. So ultimately, the Broncos did pretty well when it came to how we were positioning ourselves. And as I understand it, the Denver Broncos, outside of the running backs that were already taken off the board, RJ Harvey was the number 1 guy on their board, and they were targeting him in the second round as one of their draft picks at the running back position. So
I think I had a lot of hype around him, RJ Harvey.
Yes.
A lot of people really like this kid. UCF, right?
UCF, that's correct. Now, full disclosure, just putting it out there. I think he's a great running back. I really do like him, and I really think that he's going to be a productive guy for my Denver Broncos.
I'm waiting for the but.
There is a but.
Yep.
I have a big concern with RJ Harvey.
And now, would that be age?
And that is what?
Would that be age?
No.
Okay.
No. So I think he has speed. I think he can catch, and I think he can run the ball.
Yep.
My big concern is exactly the reasons why I liked Amari Hampton and what we spoke about with your first round draft pick, which is RJ Harvey was not asked to pass pro almost at all.
Yeah.
And my Denver Broncos, like just generally speaking, have already gone through something similar to this. And that is with Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay went for 2 consecutive years with 1,000 rush yards. There was no denying that in the right system with the right guys and in the right, scheme, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Philip Lindsay was a back that had speed, elusiveness, and could produce in certain situations. Underline certain situations. The issue that the Denver Broncos had, especially in his second year, more so than his first, but second year in particular, was the fact that teams were able to key in when he was on the field. And the reason for that is that while he made valiant efforts to pass protect, he had 2 problems. 1, he whiffed on a lot of blocks, and 2, he got run over a lot. Why? He didn't have the kind of the mass or the size.
Well, that's kind of weird that you say that, because believe it or not, Austin Eckler, little mini me, he was excellent pass blocker. So, but he was pound for pound probably one of the strongest running backs in the league for a little while. So it could have been a lower body thing with Lindsay. But I'll say I have to believe pass blocking is not easy for most running backs.
It's not, but this is why you need to draft the right guys for the right position. John Mack, just as an FYI, I spent most of my day outside lifting very heavy trees off my property that fell as a result of the ice storm. I don't eat caramel corn. I'm eating air pop popcorn. which is one of the healthiest snacks you can possibly eat. And on top of that, at my peak, I was running an under 5-minute mile at 245 pounds. And it takes a long time for that to dissipate. So we'll just leave it there. With regards to RJ Harvey, I agree. Pass pro for most running backs is extremely difficult. Pass pro in general for transitional running backs coming from college to the NFL is incredibly difficult. 100%. However, there's a few things that I have some concerns with, and this is, I posted this on X, and I will own my takes on this. He's an excellent running back, love his elusiveness, love his vision, and I think he's going to be incredibly productive. My concern is the potential tells, which, and what I mean by that is at 5'8", is he going to be able to hold his own when it comes to pass protection against much bigger, stronger guys like defensive ends and linebackers who are, say, 6'2" and 240 or 250 pounds, or defensive ends who are 6'4" and 295 pounds, coming against a 5'8", 214, 220 pound running back. Like, I just think that the problem is that you have a size weight fulcrum issue here with the smaller guy and a much bigger guy, where the bigger guy can actually kind of just, like, he doesn't need to necessarily come at the shorter running back head on. They can come over top and kind of push him down just because they have so much height over him.
He better get low, man. I'll tell you that. He better
Right,
get.
Yeah, he's already low. He's like Genty. They're both like the same height, almost the same weight.
Right. And I am totally okay if I'm totally wrong, right? I would love to be wrong. In fact, I would love nothing more but to be wrong. However, like, let's put it this way. We spoke about CJ Anderson, right, earlier in the podcast and stuff when we were talking about like running backs and all that kind of stuff. So CJ Anderson was 5'9", but he was 230 pounds. Okay.
That's a bowling ball.
Okay. The dude is just jacked, right? He is short and just jacked. And that guy can hold up to a 230 pound linebacker. Why? Because he could take the dude out the knees and basically send him off the field.
He's already going to be lower than that linebacker being smaller, and he's just thick.
He's the same weight. He's got much better and lower center of gravity and can hold his own because of literally the same weight. Like he's going pound for pound against like a good percentage of linebackers. The problem with RJ Harvey is that he's sub 220 and sub 6 foot. So he's got lower center of gravity and he's got a lower weight. And my concern is those two things may come back to bite him. The other concern that I have with RJ Harvey, and it's not necessarily a concern because RJ Harvey is a better running back than the other ones we have on our roster, is Jaleel McLaughlin as well as Ben Watson. They're basically the same type of running back as RJ Harvey. So one or both of those guys are going to need to go for our roster because there's no sense in keeping limited running. Like, one of the three are going to stay, and I think those other two are gone as a result of us drafting RJ Harvey.
I was actually really, kind of shocked. I really didn't know much about this kid. Again, doing all the mock drafts that I've done, when you have the bigger running backs, like you got the running back from Iowa, you got, Scattaboo out there. I was thinking at Hampton for you in round one. I was thinking that Denver was definitely going to go with a big running back, that power. Because, watching a lot of the shows with the Broncos, it's like no one really liked Estime all that much. And he's kind of been the power back. And if you're looking to replace him, I was thinking, a natural power back like that would have been the fit. But I can also see Sean Payton, if with this kid, it's like they're not giving me any stats on my iPad, really. But I'm like, is he like a big pass catcher out of the backfield?
He's
trying to get like a Kamara?
No, he's got great hands and he runs the ball really well. So he does all of the other things very well. I'm not knocking the kid unilaterally. I'm simply saying that there are natural disadvantages to being a height-size combination. It's just a fact. Like, there's a reason why just because you're really good at basketball if you're sub 6 foot, you're screwed. Right? Like, it's just a fact. Like, you're done. And there's and like the other thing is, like, for example, like an offensive lineman, you can be a left tackle and be really good. But guess what? If you're like sub 6'4", you're done. Why? You just don't have long enough arms to keep guys at bay. Like, it's just a fact. Like, there's certain things that are just, factual things that are important. And the challenge is that when you're short, like really short, and don't have weight as a counter to the height differential, you're putting yourself at a little bit of at a disadvantage. That doesn't mean that he can't learn leverage techniques. That doesn't mean that he can't do certain things to help counter that. That doesn't mean that he can't build muscle and even mass in order to counter that. But the point is, I'm only as good as the information I have before me. And what I have before me was his height and weight at the combine. And
is he a day one starter?
Yes.
I would think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
He takes over for Jaleel McLaughlin. He takes over for potentially even Estime. And then the question then becomes, how do we then shimmy shake things around to make that all fit? So anyways, that's our round 2 pick, RJ Harvey. Despite my critiques, I actually like the pick. I think that he definitely is a dude that steps in and steps in as the.
I like the pick a lot too, man.
He's basically the starter unless he proves otherwise.
I'm not excited about it.
But my concern is I liked a couple other guys a little bit more than RJ Harvey at that pick.
Are you just saying different positions or at the same position?
Same position.
Yeah, me too.
Same position. I've been very clear. The Broncos running back room needed to be overhauled. They were the problem.
After last season's stats, that's, and especially with that O-line, definitely needed some new.
Right.
Some type
I
of
don't disagree on the position. I just disagree on the player.
Right. So
based on what I said.
So look, Sean Payton sees a guy and pegs him into the position and has a plan. Until proven otherwise, I have to trust the plan, especially in these early rounds. Now the question is, does he fit? Does he do the thing? I agree with Victory Lap here, by the way, which is I actually wanted us to trade back up and get Henderson. I wanted us to go back up to the top pick in the second round because I think Henderson was the best, quote unquote, fit for my Denver Broncos.
Henderson would have been a great fit for any team. The knock on Henderson is his durability. It's his durability. He wasn't like Genty or Hampton in durability like those guys. So, and he's like
definitely probably the third best running back down the draft.
Well, he was. He was definitely the third best running back. But the point being for me is with a Sean Payton offense and the medical staff of Denver, I think Henderson would have been the better pick for our team. I think he would have stayed healthy. I think that he was the better fit for the team. Now, we would have had to given up other picks, which we're going to get to in just a moment. But let's blast through this. We don't have a show forever.
No.
So let's start blasting through these a little faster here, and we'll give our quick 2 cents and then go through.
Man.
So DZ, go.
So at 55, the Chargers surprised me again. First round, second round, and they got Trey Harris, Ole Miss wide receiver, 6'2", 205 pounds. This guy was my guy. He was one of my guys, and I was excited that they got him for a couple reasons. One is he gets to play along with Mike Williams, who's only on a 1-year deal, who Mike is that prototypical X guy. And this guy in college only played X. He was an exclusive X receiver. And I believe only T-Mac was the only other guy that played X as much out of all the receivers that were drafted in front of him. I could be wrong. Could be very wrong. This guy isn't the fastest. He's got a very limited route tree, but this dude produces, man. He produces, and he is so good after the catch. This guy, once he gets to that ball, he's not coming down. He's going on. He's either scoring or he's getting, 8, 9 more yards. And another thing I liked about him is when cornerbacks are playing man on man with him or are grabby all over him, he still catches the damn ball. I mean, he's made some of these catches where he's reaching for the ball around the cornerback's helmet and catching the ball. He's really good at the short and deep route tree. It'd be nice to see if they could help him out with intermediate route running area. That'd be great. We'll see what the coaching staff does with him. I'm excited about him. There's some charts out there on social media of there's like all the wide receivers coming into the draft, and then here's Trey Harris, and he's all the way by himself. I mean, it's just what he did. And yeah, I guess his senior year, if you really want to get down nitty gritty, he didn't play against the best competition because, like everybody knows, SEC has that like lump of games where they play against and beat 'em up teams, but he still produces, and 150 yards here, 200 yards there. Yeah, I think he got 1,000.
Didn't he average
yards.
128 yards a game?
Something
is what I'm guessing.
That. Yeah, something crazy like that. And another thing about him is he's I don't know. This is something the Chargers did not have last year. They had so many guys in the building that couldn't do this, and I'm happy that he's there. He's got to work on his route running and route tree, in my opinion. And he's not going to have that crazy speed, so that sucks for him. But I'm excited about this guy, especially just like Omarion Hampton, who I thought gets to learn with Najee. This guy gets to learn with Mike Williams. So I think that's a plus, and that I think that it's helping these guys project for year 2, year 3, and on. Instead of coming in there without
I think Mike Williams is going to learn from him.
I mean, sure, he could, but we'll see. This guy scored really well, too, at the Combine. But, yeah. And then the thing is, one thing the staff liked about him is he got hurt with a sports hernia and still tested at the Combine. And even though it was going to hurt his overall score, the Charger staff liked the fact that he did come back and he tested even though he wasn't 100%. They were like, hey, man, we know that was tough. So I think that was another character get for them.
I think I'm up again. Got 11.
Yeah.
We got 11 picks. So this is the guy that Cap was talking about. He's an interesting player. His name is Darian Porter, cornerback from Iowa State. He started off as a wide receiver, and he played in that position for 3 years and then switched over to cornerback. So kind of like what Richard Sherman did. And I'm not going to say he's a Richard Sherman, but he's got some of the same traits. He's like 6'3", and he runs a 4.3 40. And he's got a huge wingspan. So I love the pick. He's super athletic. He's off the charts, but he lacks, a lot of time playing in that cornerback position, which is a position that the Raiders really needed because, they let Jack Jones go. So Jack walked. There's a lot of Jack on this show tonight. Damn. We're talking about Jacks.
It's a good name.
But it's like he's just one of those players, if you can develop him and if he goes to the same trajectory like a Richard Sherman, again, I'm not saying he's going to be Richard Sherman. He's going to be someone, and he's a total Pete Carroll's guy. I mean, you look at, their safeties. They're 6'3", they're 6'4". You're bringing in a corner now at 6'3", almost 6'4". So he just fits a Pete Carroll's defense. And the upside is tremendous. In the way of starting,
Thanks, Carlos.
It just depends if they bring anybody else in. Hey, what's up, Carlos? Salute, brother. So it depends if they bring anybody else in. Maybe they make a trade with Miami. I don't know. But he is a potential starter. He's going to have to go against, I forgot the kid's name, They got was a previous first-round draft pick from Miami, a different one, different corner. So we'll see how he does, but the upside is definitely there.
Yeah, it's Iowa Cyclones, Jerry Porter. I do remember seeing some stuff on him. Not going to say I'm familiar with him, but I'm going to take your word for it, Jack.
Yeah, I'm just reading his stats now. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, 4.340.
6'4". Holy shit. Wow. That is definitely a Pete Carroll guy. Holy crap.
Yeah. So as a corner, he'll go up against all those bigger wide receivers, that's for sure.
Are you on the NFL page by any chance?
No, I'm on ESPN.
Okay, because look at his I was wondering if he did his 3-cone drill, and that usually that usually help projects with a cornerback, especially that size. I mean, if that number's down really low, that's gonna be pretty impressive with a guy that big, especially moving, backpedaling, things like that.
So we should all look up tonight. Like, I think they call it the raw score. It's
RAS.
just like something that
RAS.
Yeah, it's just pure athletics, and he's like way up there in that percentage. I think he's 98 or 99, like 99.
So this guy runs a 4.3 40-yard, which is impressive, but that would mean he's chasing somebody down, so that's not good. But so I want to see. I mean, that's incredible speed for a guy that big. But I want to see like his shuttle scores and stuff. And I don't know if he did that.
I'll see if I can find that. I'll send it in the chat later on tonight.
Wow, that's impressive, man. What a get.
Yeah. So I'm going to merge the Broncos third round picks just to speed this along. We got Pat Bryant, wide receiver, and Savion Jones in the third round. And of course, the Broncos, in typical fashion, also traded for the third time in this draft.
Savion's a massive human being, man.
Correct. So Savion Jones is probably the guy that I thought that we got as a steal in the third round. He's a guy that really was projected to probably go into the second based on skill set, but then end up falling to the third.
Also where he played.
Mm-hmm.
LSU.
Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that I think that the Broncos got a steal there, and I think he's going to be certainly in that fringe starter / rotational role for the Broncos.
Big time.
Okay. The problem that the Broncos have right now is that their starters are in the upper echelon of the entire NFL. And that's not me just being a Broncos fan. Like they are literally in the upper tier of the NFL of the team.
Can't argue.
And
you need rotations. You need guys to rotate, man.
But when you get a guy like that that's coming in, I think he'll start to claw away at some of those starting reps and stuff as the season goes on.
Or he's going to be a project player for you guys. He reminds me of so real quick. He reminds me that Savion pick for the Broncos reminds me exactly what the Chargers did last year. They got a guy, Justin Aboigbe from Alabama, big, massive DN type of guy who didn't get that much playing time, and I think they're grooming him to take that next step, maybe into the next following season, which I could see that might be for Savion Jones, just due to his size and his bend and stuff, things I've seen about him.
I see him taking over for potentially Zach Allen, who I think is going to command after this season more like big time dollars. And I think Savion, and that'll be a comp pick for the Broncos. I think they're going to let Zach Allen walk. I think they're going to bring in some of the depth guys we got in this year's draft. And just real quick on Pat Bryant, I like Pat Bryant. I think he's a great pick for the Broncos. I think he is a
lot of people like him.
A shorter, faster, better version of Little Jordan Humphrey. Kind of does the dirty work of a wide receiver, kind of as we spoke about your pick there, Jack, with when Jack was here earlier, because, why not just use the name Jack a whole bunch of times on the show? Because that's pretty much the way things are. I think that's the way things are going today. But so Pat Bryant is a guy that does incredible work in contested catches. Really does incredible work there, has great ball control. I kind of see him as a smaller version of Tim Patrick. but filling the role of little Jordan Humphrey. So for Broncos fans, that's kind of where I believe Pat Bryant is going to fill that role, which is that kind of dirty work wide receiver role that Sean Payton loves to have in.
Was he Illinois? Is that Pat Bryant, Illinois?
Yes, he's Illinois.
Yeah,
he's Illinois. Yeah. And so Pat Bryant, I actually like the pick. I do think that the Broncos maybe took him a little early than he probably otherwise should have gone. But there was other interest from other teams, and I think the Broncos knew this, and they simply just said, like, we need and are looking for kind of that mold. And if they're, if he's the best in that mold, then you take a need a little earlier than a guy that you like to have instead. So overall, with my Denver Broncos 3rd round pick, I think on the surface we drafted him too early. Honestly, as long as he works out, like 3rd round, 4th round, like, does it really matter if he ends up becoming a second, like a wide receiver 2nd or wide receiver 3rd? Like, at the end of the day, like, if he can produce even part or half of what he did, kind of like what he did in college, you're going to take that every day of the week. So,
I mean, more young weapons for Bo Nix, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we probably could have got him a little later, but you don't risk it when you think that there's other interest out there. So I think the Broncos did a reasonably good job, because I think Savion Jones is a guy that the Broncos were targeting, and then we ended up packaging picks in order to nab Savion Jones.
He's such a unique prospect, man.
Yeah.
Richie, he's so unique.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how they use him.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's the thing there. So we're gonna go ahead and
heads up.
And
all right,
go over to you.
You're 3rd.
Okay, so I'm not shocked again, because I feel like a dummy on this pick, because one of my favorite guys was Derek Harmon, right? Like, throughout this whole process, I really wanted Derek Harmon, and I was like, he didn't play with anybody elite. And in the 3rd round pick, the Chargers pick a D tackle, and a guy I didn't pick once in my hundreds of mock drafts, and that's Jamari Caldwell, who was Derek Harmon's partner on that line, D tackle. And I was like, I know nothing about this guy, but it only took like 20 seconds for me to go, oh, okay, that's why you guys picked this guy. I get it. Yeah, he's 6'2", 332 pounds. They lost Poona Ford, all right? This is Poona's replacement, in my opinion, hands down. I grew up playing football. I played primarily D-line, and one thing my coaches always said to me, stay square. Wilson, stay square, banging their whistle off my head, fucking stay. They'd said a lot of other stuff. And if you watch this guy's tape, he is square as all square can be, man. And his tape before he went to Oregon from Houston was violent, explosive. This guy he just plays with a speed that, you don't see a lot of D tackles doing. And it was like he was like waiting for that double team to come. He was like, all right, you want 2 on me? That's cool. And, just watching this guy shed one of the guys going for the tackle for loss or something. But then when he came to Oregon, what I think happened is what some people are saying is they said, hey man, we want you to gain some weight and you're just going to play nose tackle. And that's what he did, because he primarily was a 3 tech. So he went to Oregon, played nose tackle, and did a hell of a job there for Derek Harmon, who got picked in round 1 to do all the flashy stuff. But this guy is fun. He's a fun dude. He is a nasty D tackle. He's not the biggest, he's only 6'2", but he's got that right size for the Minter defense, that Raven-esque kind of style. And I'm excited, man. This guy eats double teams for breakfast.
I do like him. It's like, he knows how to put pressure onto the quarterbacks. I mean, you look at his stats, 17 quarterback pressures last season coming from your defensive tackle.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
So my one thing is I'm like, are they going to ask him to lose some weight? Like, he's 330. Like, are they going to want him to get down to maybe like that 310, 315?
Probably.
We'll see.
Are you going to be a 3 tech or it's going to be a 1 tech?
He doesn't care. He said he'll play anywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. But the Raven-esque thing that I kept quoting is they want all their D tackles to be over 300 pounds. That's, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're going to be 300 plus. And Baltimore Ravens had a lot of guys in the 330-pound range. So I'm thinking they might have him stick at this and just let him rock. And if he's good at that, so be it, man. But yeah, man, interesting prospect, but definitely kind of felt like a reach in my opinion, and was a shock that his name was called and not others.
Is he a starter?
He's gonna. They rotate this new defense. They rotate all their guys in and out. So he'll start.
All right,
so then be starter or second in command, in my opinion.
Because they brought in two other guys that are going to be just rotational players. They don't really have a true stud like Broncos, Raiders, and Chiefs do.
DZ, you might end up having him be the second, and then by the end of the year, maybe start stepping in first in some of the latter games in the season.
Sure.
If he starts to pick it up, right?
Injuries happen, things like that.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. The Broncos did not have a 5th-round pick.
Wait, Richie, we got to finish the 3rd round for me before we go to the 5th. So sure, I'm going to go back. I'm going back to back. Actually, I'm going to go back to back to back because I got the next 3 picks between our teams. So this is what Captain was talking about when he came on the show earlier tonight. The Raiders drafted, guard Caleb Rogers out of Texas Tech. Big boy.
They had him listed as tackle at first, and I was like, what the hell are the Raiders doing? But then they went guard, and I was like, okay.
Well, here's the thing. Part of the reason, again, that score, that athletic score, look at it. He's like in the 95th percentile or something like that. Wow. He's played all 4 positions, everything but center. So he's played at all 4. So he's versatile. For me, at the time when they drafted him, this was my reach pick at this moment, based on the pick they took next. So he's just a very versatile, he wanted to play in the Senior Bowl. He's not sitting out waiting for the NFL draft. He just loves ball. He's another, type of Pete Carroll guy. And when this offensive line, when you get a Genty, you draft a wide receiver, everything is starting to follow suit. You want to promote this offense and get behind Geno. So I can see how Spytek, Geno, their offensive coordinator, and Chip, it's all just kind of falling together. Now their next pick is the one I'm excited about. Yeah. This is like one of my favorite players in this entire draft is Charles Grant from William & Mary. Smaller school, left tackle. I mean, he doesn't have that score like Grant does.
It reminds me of Glaze, man. To be honest with you, just taken later.
He's kind of a mauler. I mean, I watched a little bit of film on him, and he just beats up on people. He's got that mentality. So that's one of my favorite picks in the draft. It's weird. I thought they should have been switched. If you're going to do this draft for the Raiders, you'd put Charles Grant out there first, and then you take Caleb Rogers because you have back-to-back picks from those trade backs. Then I'm my next pick, number 4, and I'll make this one quick. Dante Thornton Jr., wide receiver, Tennessee, 6'5", 210 pounds, 4.30 40. Weapon. So they take the Beck earlier. Again, slot, great hands. This guy had like a very limited route tree, but name me how many guys that run a 4.30 at 6'5". And again, I think he kind of dropped because Tennessee only used him on the long ball. So he has to improve on the mid-range, short range, but he can be a very exciting player to watch and just watch him grow. So watch out for this kid. He's gonna terrorize a lot of teams this year. That's for sure. Yeah. So I try to make it short and sweet because again, we got to move on.
Good stuff.
So
who's next? Is that you, Richie?
So I know 5th round, and then I jumped.
Wait. I have one more. Sorry.
After Thornton?
Yeah. We got Tonka Hemingway.
Oh, yeah.
So defensive tackle, South Carolina. So, again, we like to build from the trenches. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know a lot of them, but he's averaging about like three and sacks, a year, just defensive guy. He's a little undersized, but again, he's got a C on his chest, and he doesn't get hurt. Just another kid that loves ball. Again,
You got a guy later on that I like even more than him.
Me too. And
Yeah.
I think that's why I didn't really focus on Tonka Hemingway. So, all right, move on to number 5 or 4th round after 135.
Who would that be?
Well, we're already, so the 4th round, I'm going to go 4th, 5th, and 6th for the Broncos. And then we'll kind of have you do the same, and then we'll just do the quick recap on 7th round, guys.
Okay.
So in the 4th round, my Denver Broncos got Q Robinson. He's a tweener. He is a guy that's a pure pass rusher, but is a stud on special teams. So that's his path to the roster. His path to the roster is a special teams guy, and he basically needs to show out in preseason to show that he belongs on the team as a developmental pass rusher. If he can do that, I think he'll win out over like a Deontay Tillman, or a Tillman rather, on the roster. So Tillman was a great guy. I like him as a pickup, but I think as an outside linebacker, I think that the best special teamer plus the best upside is going to win between the guys in that lower level of the roster, right? Like, if you're talking like the 4th or 5th guy on the team, special teams is going to be the thing that wins out. So if this guy can show out that he is that good at special teams, then he'll push out some guys in the lower tier of the outside linebacker room. And if he can show that he has potential as a rusher, then the Broncos will certainly keep him as a rotational guy. And if he continues to improve, he'll see playing time, like for sure. Like the Broncos and Sean Payton are all about best player on the field to give them the best chance to win a game. So, why wouldn't you play a guy that's going to give you the best chance to win? Next up is our 6th round pick, which is a position of need. We let Riley Dixon go, which is a tough pill to swallow as a Denver Broncos fan, but Riley Dixon was going to be a sought after kind of free agent, whatnot. We ended up getting arguably the best punter in the draft.
Wow, you guys drafted a punter. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Which is Jeremy Crawshaw from Florida.
Been wanting to hear this one.
He has incredible hang time. Basically, the important measurable stats are pretty impressive. He kind of ticks the boxes in terms of like the character and everything else, as well as stats. So I would say that was a pretty good pickup for my Denver Broncos.
I think he averaged 48 yards a punt, if I'm correct.
It was more than that. It was like 52 or something. It was something stupid.
Damn.
It was something stupid. Like it was ridiculous. But anyways, the point being is from a statistical perspective, he basically ticked all of the big boxes that you're looking for from a punter at the NFL level. We have Rizzy, who is the special teams coordinator that Sean Payton is familiar with, who is an excellent, like as in like upper echelon special teams coordinator in the NFL. This is 100% a Rizzy pick. Rizzy said, "That's my guy, go get him." And so, that makes a tremendous amount of sense. I think that Rizzy's earned the right at this point, given his special team success, to kind of pick his guy, to have his guy there. So I am not upset with the pick. I think it's unusual that a punter gets picked, in the 6th round, for example.
Can you just imagine him kicking in Mile High, how far that ball is going to go?
It's not so much how far it's going to go, as how high it's going to go.
Yeah, and then how long it stays up there.
It's the height,
Right.
right? Yeah, because he's got a tremendous amount of hang time, as well as
He's going from sea level to mile high. Wow.
So, again, important pieces there. I think he's the right fit for the Rizzy kind of special teams kind of mold, etc. And I think that's fine. I have no issues with that at all. It was a position of need for the team. And I think too many football fans don't truly appreciate the importance of a really good punter, because that can flip the field for you. That can pin teams back, at specific spots. That can there's just so many benefits of having a really good punter like that. Also, obviously, a field goal kicker is another big deal, right? Because that's points on the board. But I think a solid punter like that can really elevate your team if you can pin guys back the right way. So I am not upset with that pick whatsoever. And then that's going to shimmy shake over to you, DZ, and then we'll finish off with Jack, and then we'll do a quick recap of the 7th round.
Well, in the 4th round, the Chargers select Kyle Kennard, edge out of South Carolina, and that's another one of my guys.
Yep.
And he's 6'4", 254. He's got 34-inch arms, long arms. But I knew that this team needed some juice on the edge. They didn't have it, and this is what this guy's going to bring. He's going to bring that speed. He's got a great motor. The problem with this guy is he can get bullied. So he can get bullied and he can get, manhandled, because he's not, it might be his build, or it might be his strengths, but he Tooley is 6'4", but he's 290, plays at 280, 290 on the other side. And I don't know what Khalil's at, but Khalil Mack doesn't let anybody bully him. But this guy brings juice. He's got speed. I see him as a situational guy. The first year, they're going to groom him. They're going to get him. He's going to be a workout warrior. He's a 5th-year senior. It's kind of a red flag. But anyways, I like him. He's definitely needed some speed and some juice on that. And then the second guy is a lot of fans are really excited about, just from his highlight film. And I didn't know anything about this guy, but it's a another wide receiver, Keandre Lambert-Smith out of Auburn, came from Penn State, 6'1", 190. But he runs a 4.37, so he's fast. He's got speed. But he's got all these accolades, second team All SEC. His uncle's Cam Chancellor. He played DB.
That's a tough dude. So if he's got that kind of toughness, that's good.
Yeah, he played DB at Virginia Tech. Not him, but I'm still digging into this guy, but a lot of my Charger fans are really excited about him because they could see him contributing in a 3 wide receiver set, 4, whatever, and being here in the future. And then in the that was 4th, 5th, in the 6th round, they got a guy. It's like another receiver. They traded up for Aronde Gadsden II out of Syracuse, who is listed as a tight end, but this dude's not a tight end in my opinion. He's just a large receiver, 6'5", 243 pounds. That's you're just a giant receiver at that point.
That's a Y.
Yeah,
that's a Y. Yeah.
Yeah, to me, he's like he's going to be that Joker. He's going to be that Joker for, they're going to move this guy around. I can't see him doing much, but the things I'm seeing about this guy is he catches everything. He's going to be that inline. He's that inline tight end. His father was a wide receiver, played in the NFL with the Dolphins. So there's that. What does he got? He's got over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. It's just another weapon. And then what is that? That leaves us a 6-0. We talking? Where'd I go? Okay, I got one more guy before the 7th round. Should we talk about that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, dude! Did I just skip over somebody? Holy hell!
That's a crime.
Dude, no way did I skip over this guy. Oh, you got me I'm all screwed up now because no. Okay, I didn't. Thank God. Okay. Because in the 6th round, they picked Branson Taylor. Branson Taylor out of Pitt. Massive human being. I played left tackle at Pitt. Got hurt, 6'6", 321 pounds. This guy in my opinion, they're going to try to groom him to be the left guard of the future. I think they're done with the Zion experiment. Whether that plays out this season, who knows? But I think when Zion's gone, because May 1st, they have to decide if they're going to use the 5th-year option on him. But this guy, people mover, massive human, run blocking, great run blocker, great pass blocker. Problem is, he doesn't have good footwork. Reminds me of DJ Fluker kind of. And that's a big red flag, but we'll see. He's got great athleticism. He did have a knee injury, so he slid down the boards. There's a lot of these guys the Chargers picked this year who had some sort of injury and they slid and they went up and grabbed him, and this is one of them. But
oh, I like that.
Yeah, this is this guy. He's a mauler, man. He's a big human, so we'll see.
No, actually, I like that for the wrong reasons. Well, certainly not ones
right. I was wondering what you were meaning by that, Richie.
Because Chargers have had a long and storied history of injuries on your team.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
So
right.
I'm happy that you have continued your storied tradition of continuing to.
Well, that's Trey Harris, right? In the second round, he had a sports hernia, and then Keandre Lambert, I believe, had some sort of injury. Don't quote. I'm not 100 on this, and he slid. And then this Branson Taylor had some sort of knee injury, and for a man that big, yeah, he says he's ready to rock. We'll see. And then, yeah, man. What do we got? One more round. I got round 6, I guess. RJ Mickens, safety.
Yeah.
I see him as a special teamer. Another guy whose dad played in the league. I think this guy, I just see this guy as a special teamer. He plays zone. He's a really good safety. He can play zone and stuff like that. And what is there to say about him? Played at Clemson, so he played in the ACC, which is decent division in college ball. And then I see him just playing. I think honestly think this round 6 and 7, they went out and got guys for the special teams because we lost a lot of special teamers in the off season, and I see him as just contributing and just being depth in that safety room. But Alohi Gilman, who is our starting free safety, he's on his last year, so this could be his replacement. This guy can play free and strong safety.
Awesome.
Nice.
Jack, 7th round. Let's see what you got.
Well, I still have to go back to the 6th round. I got three to talk about. So, DZ, this is who you were thinking of. Very interesting player. JJ Pegas, defensive tackle, Ole Miss.
Pigs?
So not
Pigs? I think it's Pigs.
Is it Pegas?
Pigs.
P-E-G-U-E-S.
JJ Pigs.
Sorry, Pig. However you pronounce the name. What the hell?
Whatever.
But he's an interesting player, another defensive tackle. So they addressed the offensive tackles with 2, defensive tackles with 2. But what makes this guy very unique is he also played fullback. So you're talking, and a guy is like, I think he's like 285, somewhere in there. And he had 7 touchdowns. So they put him in that goal line. So again, we're talking the offense revamp. You can use him as a fullback and as at your goal line or the tush push. I mean, that offense is now going to be scary with the players that they've just added on to this roster. So he's a very fascinating. I think it's going to be very fun to watch as a big boy doing that.
Yeah.
And then this one was really interesting to me was Tommy Malott. Round 6, 213 overall from Montana State. Quarterback he's going to be transferred over to being a wide receiver, punt returner, kick returner. The comp on him is Julian Edelman is the comp.
5'11", man. Wow.
And he runs a 4.39 40. So, I mean, he can be another slot wide receiver and, do trick plays with the kid. And what was interesting
he didn't get drafted to be a quarterback. He got drafted to be wow.
Yep, because that's the whole thing. The next pick at 215, 2 picks later, is Cam Miller from North Dakota State. Now, they drafted him to be a quarterback. So when I saw 2 quarterbacks going in the 6th round, and again, Sanders, I'm like, why didn't we get Sanders earlier than that? And then seeing this, I'm like, why are we drafting 2 6th-round quarterbacks until you learn what they're going to do? So just to put it all in perspective, and we'll talk about the 7th round, and I'll knock that one out too since I'm here. So 7th round
quarterback. Okay.
So Cody Lindenberg, linebacker at Minnesota, I don't know what he's going to do. I think he's going to either be a special teamer or probably won't make the roster. But my overall take of what I've seen on this, you got 2 offensive linemen, a top running back, 3 wide receivers, a defensive tackle that can play fullback and also goal line. That offense, which was the worst by far in the AFC West, bar none, and actually one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Oh my God, it's a total turnaround. It's a 180 there, an absolute 180.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys did a tremendous job on that front, at least to push you forward. Now, you may have not done all the work needed to kind of get you there, but you've done huge work to move yourself forward to be at least truly competitive, or an effort to be truly competitive at the very least. And I think that's, like I said, I think I see you as a 9 or 10 win team potentially, depending on how the players all fit into Pete Carroll's offense. I think that it could be slightly lower than the 9 or 10 win, depending on how the players fit into what Pete Carroll wants to do. But either way, we're talking a huge, flip the script
Absolutely.
from what we were used to seeing from your Las Vegas Raiders this season, in my opinion. So,
and going from the offensive coordinator with Gonsby to having a Chip Kelly coming off the national championship. Oh my God, this is going to be a fun offense to watch for sure.
Right.
Especially with Thornton, I believe, and Chip Kelly's offense, and then Genty. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to cover the Broncos 7th round pick, which is a very interesting player. He is 6'7", 256 pounds. He is a tight end. But what makes him so interesting, he is a dual sport athlete. Now, for Broncos fans, this sounds an awful lot, kind of, sort of like a guy that we are familiar with by the name of Julius Thomas.
I remember him.
Yeah, most people do.
Yep.
He was kind of a dangerous tight end for us.
Yeah.
He couldn't block himself out of a wet paper bag, but man, he could catch a football. Right? Like, he was a red zone threat. This guy here, in total, has played 57 snaps of football, period.
What?
Oh my God.
That's it. 57. That's
57?
57. He also has a 100% pass catch rate in the college level. 4 pass catches for 4 touchdowns.
Red zone target.
Red zone target. The dude.
Were they smoking some green in Denver during the draft room?
No, they're smoking orange and blue.
I am very intrigued with him as a draft prospect. I see him as a practice squad player for my Denver Broncos. I don't see him being a starter unless the dude just kind of lights the world on fire in the preseason and the Broncos are super scared that he's going to get picked up. But his size, pass catchability, red zone threat, size, tick, 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 tick. These are things that you can't teach. Like, you can't teach a guy to grow 3 inches. You can't teach a guy to be able to carry that amount of weight. You can't teach a guy the athleticism that's required to get open in the red zone, right? These are all, obviously things that he's kind of developed over the years, even if he hasn't played that much. So I actually think that he's got some interesting potential for my Denver Broncos. Funnily enough, we have another tight end who I'm actually really intrigued with, who I think is going to be competing with Caleb Laudner here in Yasmin, who is an international player who does not count towards our 53-man roster. He's a Aussie rugby player who is an absolute athletic freak. He's like 6'4", like 250-pound tight end.
So you got one too.
Yeah, like we got another guy that's in that kind of mold who's just a freak. The dude runs like a 4,
I mean, we got an
4,
Aussie
5.
guy too that's an international tight end thing.
Right.
Huh.
So either way, like we have some interesting tight end prospects who fit into the mold of Joker, which is a role that Sean Payton really likes to have on the team. Certainly a dude that's 6'7" that can run well, pass catch well in the red zone would fit that role.
Reminds me of Donald Parham.
Yeah.
The guy the Chargers had.
Correct. But I think that this guy here showed a little bit more despite doing less at the college level. So I think it's kind of like a weird prospect. But I think this is the type of guy that the Broncos want to keep on their practice squad. They want to just kind of tuck him away and develop him to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And at 256 pounds, if he can kind of keep himself at, say, 260 or 265 as like kind of a sweet spot, he could make for a very interesting prospect because at 6'7", he's got very long arms. He would make for a great inline blocker at the tight end position. Plus, he could be a red zone threat, and that's exactly
the type of guy. If he can get his pad level down, then yeah.
Yeah, but he's got the athleticism from basketball, and so that it's just a super interesting prospect. I'm not like a lot of other Broncos fans that's projecting this guy to be a starter or anything stupid like that. I think that's an absolute silly projection for someone that's taken the 7th round. That being said, he would be a flyer to make the 53. I think he's targeted to be a practice squad player, but it's obvious that this dude can be a legitimate red zone threat. And so it'll be very interesting to see where he ends up. So
I'm going to have to look into him.
Over to you. I mean, it's obviously an intriguing prospect, just given.
Yeah, very. Like it just you had Savion and him both stick out to me. I'm both like, whoa, these are some really
it's weird,
wild
right? It's very odd combination of stats. Like it's just a very odd combo of stats, and I'm the first to kind of point that out.
They probably saw those stats and they were like, that's really interesting. Boom, grab them. Like, they were like us, like, this is interesting. It's our last pick. Why not?
Well, and you may as well.
That's when you take a flyer on the guy.
Yeah.
In the 7th round, at the very end of the draft there, that's the time to really take the quote unquote athletic freak and see where they land. Right? So, DZ, over to you. And then we'll close out the show.
Yeah, man. The last guy they got, like a guy who could have gone undrafted. Trickweeze Bridges, cornerback out of Florida, 6'2", 196. I see him as a special teamer to try to make the team. I did see he's a 6th-year senior, and that's something I've noticed about a few of these prospects in this draft from the Chargers. They are older prospects. I think I've seen like another 5th-year senior and another guy like full 4 years. So they've got some guys that have played for a while. I guess an interesting fact about this guy is he's got 6'9" wingspan for his size. Those are some super long arms. But other than that, I think he's just going to be fighting for special teams, and it's good to add corners. I wish we kind of added another corner in this draft. But when we'll talk about next week, like you said, Richie, the UDFAs, they did get some they brought in some more guys, and there's some UDFAs I'm really excited to talk about. More than probably some of these guys at the end of the draft that the Chargers grabbed that I'm kind of just like feeling about, this Trickweeze Bridges, who knows? I'm not really seeing anything, but it is what it is, man.
I agree. So next week's show, guys, we're going to do a majority portion of our show on our UDFAs because there is anywhere between, 15 and 20 of the UDFA guys on each of our rosters. we have a storied history, as we spoke about earlier in the show, of UDFA prospects in our division. And so we're going to go a full show on the UDFA prospects and who we like, who we don't, and who we think is going to probably get rotated out. Because UDFAs are quite common to get rotated out of the roster pretty quickly if they don't fit the mold of what the coaches were hoping for, just to try and get other guys in to fill those spots. My Denver Broncos overall in my draft, I'm happy but unhappy. I think we didn't get a certain group of guys that I was hoping to. I think that the Broncos are closer to being a winning franchise overall and being truly competitive. I would have liked to see a package of picks to kind of consolidate our draft to get really quality guys as opposed to volume. That being said, depth on a roster means great special teams, and it also means that you're trying to plan for your future. I am somewhat concerned that our trenches are going to suffer as a result of overall what we have done, because we didn't draft the upper tier of guys, and traditionally the upper tier of guys are the ones that truly generally hit on in the upper tiers, like the first and second round of the NFL draft. It's just a statistics thing. Call me a fat guy or whatever. My general grade for the Broncos is between a B+ and a C-. I'm still honing in on kind of,
C- sounds harsh, Richie.
Dude, who do you think I am? I'm always that.
Facts.
Prove me otherwise, and I'll be happy to change my grade.
Give him a D.
I gave you a C+.
But overall, I think we got a bunch of really great depth guys. My question is, like, what are we going to do with the starting positions, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at with my, more hesitant grading structure there for my Denver Broncos. But next week is where I'm really excited. I love UDFAs. I think that they are the gems for each of our teams. Just looking at DZ and myself, Philip Lindsay, and you got Eckler as UDFA, and he was a game-changing player for you guys, as was Philip Lindsay for us for a short block of time. And each of our teams, all of us pretty much within the division, have had a handful of UDFAs that have been elite level NFL players. Like some of them even gold jacket guys that have come from UDFA players. And so that is really what makes the world go round in the NFL, which is, it doesn't matter if you're not drafted, you can still absolutely kill it in the league as long as you make it onto the field. And
just need a chance.
You just need the chance. Exactly.
Yep.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go UDFA as well as AFC West news next week's show. And we're going to go right into it. We're going to go down each one of them, talk about them, and discuss kind of where we see them fitting on the roster. And we may even circle back and compare some of our UDFAs compared to the drafted guys as well, because sometimes you actually end up with guys that are UDFAs that you actually think are going to beat out the drafted guys on your roster. And for my Denver Broncos, that has happened more regularly than I care to admit. I actually think we probably could count a bunch of guys just real quick off the top of our heads where we drafted a running back and maybe Eckler beat them out, for example. And so things of that nature are not uncommon in this league, where a UDFA gets a chip on their shoulder and says, I'm going to show you otherwise, and ends up making the team. And the dude you drafted in the same year's draft ends up getting cut. So I really think that this is a super interesting time for each of our teams. We all got better, generally speaking. It pains me to say that, because the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders all got better. I did not see a tremendous amount of missteps or head-scratching picks from either of our teams. We all seemingly did the right thing for our teams in order to progress ourselves forward. And then next week, UDFA.
Real quick. So the Chargers had a streak of a UDFA making the team for 20 consecutive years up until 2020.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty.
Wow.
That's
impressive.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that a lot of people don't realize the UDFA streaks that the AFC West have had. They are among the best or vaunted numbers across the entire NFL.
Shit. Antonio Gates was a UDFA.
Yes, he was.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, most most people, he's a Hall of Famer. Like, let's just call a duck a duck.
I mean, Hall of
right?
Fame game. Yep.
Yeah. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, until next week, where the West Side is the best side, where I promise we will go all the way down the rabbit hole.
Watch the balloons. Peace.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's
And
not happening. They're not happening. There we go.
There we go.
Why this happens?
All
I have no
guys.
clue.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down 'cause the